again to Nettie's Notes, where I provide 2-minute tips that will hopefully make your motherhood a little bit brighter and a little bit smoother. As always, I want to clarify that I am not an expert at motherhood or parenting. However, I am happy to share ideas that have worked for me and things that I have learned from other mothers around me. Thanks to my friend Shelly, who asked specifically that I do a 2-minute tip on sibling rivalry. Today I am filming from my little girl's room. I thought that was appropriate for talking about rivalry between siblings. Arguments and bickering and sibling fighting in our homes are so hard to deal with. And this is something that I believe every family struggles with. Our family certainly has our challenges among our children. I am not a child psychologist or an expert, but I am happy to share ideas that we use in our home that help to minimize sibling rivalry and sibling problems. We have 10 children, 5 boys and 5 girls. And first of all, I have noticed that most of the sibling problems happen between the children who are closest in age. Brothers and sisters who are either just older or just younger than each other. I also have a set of girl-boy twins, and I have noticed also some rivalry between these two twins, which has been interesting to watch, and I have learned a lot from having a boy and a girl exactly the same age. The first thing that I like to remember when I watch my kids argue is something that my neighbor told me when we lived in Las Vegas, Nevada. My neighbor was a 98-year-old woman who had successfully raised 4 great children. Her name is Betty, and Betty and I were good friends. I was a young mother with 6 children. She was an older woman. Every Christmas, I noticed that Betty's children came from around the nation to be with her on Christmas Day. And they would always have a great time together. They brought their spouses, their other children. It was fun to watch her household down the street get busy around the holidays each year. Well, one time when I was frustrated with my own children and the fighting amongst them, I said to Betty, "How in the world did you raise kids that are so kind to each other?" And she told me something I will always remember. She said, "When my children were little, they had the same struggles that yours have. They were jealous, they argued, they got mad at each other." And she said sometimes it got so bad that I would feel very, very frustrated at them and get angry at them. But she said now that they are older, they cannot get enough of each other. Something magical happens as kids grow up and they become very good friends. And all those times that they were together through the thick and the thin and the ups and the downs and the difficulties actually are molding them into adults who will love each other for the rest of their lives. I love to remember that phrase from Betty, my neighbor. They can't get enough of each other now. And sometimes when it's difficult and my kids are upset with each other, I know that in the future, when they grow up, when they're raising children of their own, when they are past this stage of sharing bedrooms and living next door to each other and doing chores together, they will love each other and they will be best friends so much that they will probably, hopefully, be willing to fly in from around the United States and spend time together. Tip number 2 comes from my own mom, Luann, who taught me that as a mother, I should never purposely pit my children against each other. In other words, when I'm creating an incentive, when I'm asking children to do jobs, when we are doing anything as a family, I should only do things that create a team. So, for example, I should never say, the first one to get dressed gets a treat, because only one person can win at that game. Instead, I should say, everyone who gets dressed and sits at the breakfast table by 8 o'clock gets a special treat for breakfast. Or instead of saying, the first person to finish their jobs gets an ice cream cone, I should say, everybody who has their jobs finished by 3 p.m. gets to go out and play. This has been a great reminder to me and another tool that I've used in sibling rivalry problems, and that is to always create a team within our family. There is enough tension naturally created between siblings that we don't need to emphasize that or create more as parents. Make an environment, make an atmosphere, create a home where everyone can be successful and everyone can win if they choose to do so. Tip number 3, choose your battles. There are several ways that we can respond to sibling rivalry, and here are 3 different ways that I respond. Number 1, I ignore it. Some of the parenting raising books I have read say that it is very important for kids to learn to work out their disagreements on their own. And so if I am in one area of the house and I hear kids arguing in another area of the house, I often will let them just simply work through it on their own. I stay back and let them develop tools that they will need in the future for managing situations and dealing with disagreements. My second method for dealing with sibling rivalry is to decide how much I will take. Every family is different. Some families are okay with a little bit of physical interaction in the fighting, maybe some hitting and kicking. Some families are okay with name calling. Our family is not okay with any physical contact in a mean way or any mean name calling. And so when it gets to that point, I immediately step in. I believe that once you step in as a parent, it doesn't matter so much what you do, but that you do something. You let the children know you've gone too far, you've crossed the boundary with me. Some of the tools I've used when kids have gone too far in their sibling fighting is to, number 1, separate them into different rooms. Number 2, give them a chore to do. Number 3, issue a punishment, take away a privilege or a reward. And finally, sometimes I will just talk them through it. Sit them down, help them see what's really fair. Finally, my last tip for dealing with sibling rivalry is to use humor. Just enough to let everyone diffuse the situation, and soon we can all laugh just a little bit. Sibling rivalry is definitely a challenge in motherhood. I hope that these ideas will help you get through the difficulties in your days. Remember, someday your kids are going to love each other. Don't consciously pit your children against each other. And number 3, decide exactly what you will take from your children. And then at that point, step in, issue a consequence, take away a privilege, use some humor, talk them through it, diffuse the situation. I hope this 2-minute tip will hopefully make your motherhood a little bit brighter and a little bit smoother. Thanks for joining me. If you like what you're hearing, I invite you to share and subscribe by clicking the button below. See you next time.